I want us to have an interesting discussion. Ever since this prayer talit of a thing became an issue on the church space in Nigeria, I've gotten a lot of questions, and it appears a lot of people don't know the difference between what is what. Okay, and one of the questions I want to address is this: Sajay, can I pray on a material and consecrate it to have the power of God and use it for performing miracles? That's a very sensitive question, because all through the scriptures we have instances where people, men and women, prophets of old, and even the apostles made use of materials, either their cloaks, aprons from their body, oil, or anything that you can think of. Jesus himself made a clay out of the soil and healed a blind man. So that makes the question a very sensitive one that requires carefulness in answering. Now, the truth is that the power of God can pass through a medium, right, to meet with someone. And most of these instances where a material was used in the scriptures were spontaneous. If you look at all of these instances, at no point did any of the apostles or any of the prophets sat down, took up a material, and intentionally made it a material that they would use, all right, to effect healing or to dispense God's power. So most of the times in healing meetings, these things can become spontaneous. You can get the inspiration to pick up something and use it to transmit power. And also, if someone comes to you and say, can you pray on this? I need to pass this to a sick brother or a sick sister, for the sake of their faith and to help the one who is sick. When it comes to healing, one thing we need to understand is that the number one rule is the rule of compassion. Every time Jesus healed, the first thing is that he had compassion on the sick. He had compassion on the lame. He had compassion on those who had problems. So compassion is the first rule. And when it comes to healing, most of the times we don't try to bring in a lot of logic. All right. So in such instances, you can make use of a material and dispense the power of God spontaneously. The key word here is that these things are usually spontaneous actions. But at no point should such materials be idolized or made into a teaching or made into a doctrine. We will not find in the scripture any of the apostles pick up any of the materials that they used. Like I cited in my last video, if it was today that Peter's shadow healed a sick person, or aprons were taken from Paul's body to heal the sick, what will happen today is that Peter will have a time of the day that he stands at a particular point, allowing his shadow to pass through people, and people will go through his shadow for the sake of healing. And before you know it, it will become monetized. Like today, we see people making use of aprons intentionally, and they have made it into a doctrine. Now, the danger of this is that if you make it into a doctrine, there is no guarantee that it will not become an idol. We've had situations where people put aprons into their pot of soup, into their water bottles, put aprons on their gas cookers, and all manner of things. So this is what is possible when we make such things teachings. It was just mentioned once that Jesus made clay with his spittle and healed a blind man. There is no other place where Jesus did something like that. So it was actually spontaneous. He healed many other people who were also blind, but he never made use of that material again. So it is possible to pray on a material and put the power of God on it, but you must understand that the power of God is not on that material primarily. It is the man that makes that material effective. And now what this means is that it should not become a doctrine. It should not become a frequent practice for a local assembly. As a matter of fact, what we have instructions in the New Testament when it comes to healing and ministering to other people is to lay hands on other people. And where you cannot lay hands and maybe you can pass on a material or you can call on the phone and heal, do that. But do not make a doctrine, do not make a teaching, do not make it a regular practice that your church or the faith of your members will be put in a material. I think that should settle the issue of making use of material. So yes, you can make use of materials at one point or the other, but if you are seen every time with that material, you have made it